Top of the morning to you, my Daredevils. It's me, MT, and welcome back to the Heavy Spoiler Show, y'all. Today we are breaking down episodes 5 and 6 of Daredevil Born Again, so definitely expect some heavy spoilers coming your way over the course of this video. But without further ado, let's go on a bank heist. And it is 9:05 a.m. on a lovely St. Patrick's Day morning in New York City when the episode begins to the sounds of the Rocky Road to Dublin by the Young Dubliners. We then immediately head to New York Mutual Bank, whose motto is apparently "Bank on Success." And as Matt Murdock waits to talk to a representative, we can see a picture of Miss Marvel on some pink paper. And that's because this banker is none other than Miss Marvel's father himself, Mohan Kapoor's Yusuf Khan, New York Mutual's assistant bank manager and the MCU's most intimidating Hulk. When are we going to see Yusuf Hulk versus the Red Hulk, Marvel? TikTok? You cannot keep the fans waiting. Also on Yusuf's desk is a picture of him with Kamala and the rest of his family next to a mug that Kamala gave him for World's Greatest Dad. And there's also this book here that is a collection of love quotes from the 13th century poet and mystic Jalal al-Din Rumi, subtly showing Yusuf's deep love for his wife Muniba Khan. And while the two talk about the loan application that Matt's firm submitted to the bank, Mr. Khan gets a text from Kamala herself and mentions how Kamala's been visiting some friends in California, with one of these friends being Kamala's bestie, Bruno, who got accepted into the California Institute of Technology's Gifted and Talented Immersion program during the events of the Miss Marvel Disney Plus series. However, this could also potentially be another tease towards a future Young Avengers project for Marvel Studios. I mean, we do know that the end of the Marvels saw Kamala Khan recruiting new heroes like Kate Bishop to join the new team that she was building with Nick Fury's secret list of talented humans. So there's a good chance that while Kamala is visiting her boy Bruno in California, she could stop by Pym Van Dyne Industries to recruit Cassie Lang onto her squad, as Cassie Lang was famously a member of the Young Avengers team in the comics. But anyways, Yusuf then tells Matt that he's from Jersey City, the home of his favorite superhero, Miss Marvel, before whipping out a custom Miss Marvel Funko Pop, which Funko Pop actually released with the launch of the Miss Marvel TV series IRL. And continuing on with the loan application, we learn that Murdock and McDuffie are looking to move to a much larger location and hire more lawyers. But due to their noble way of fighting corporate giants for the little man, Yusuf unfortunately cannot approve a loan for them. Yet another example of a hero in the MCU struggling to get a loan, with Sam Wilson's family also being hit with such financial roadblocks in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And when talking about his law firm, Matt Murdock brings up the biblical tale of David versus Goliath from the book of 1 Samuel chapter 17, a story that's centered around a shepherd named David using a slingshot to take down a massive giant of a soldier in his enemy's army. I mean, Daredevil's struggle against Kingpin over the past 4 seasons of his show definitely reflect this David versus Goliath theme as well. But after Matt's bid for a loan is rejected, Matt leaves the bank. But while on the phone with Kirsten on his way back to his office, his special ears overhear the sound of Devlin and his group of rainbow rascals preparing to rob that bank, causing Matt to tell Kirsten to call the police immediately before abruptly hanging up the phone call and not telling Kirsten what the hell to tell the police at all. Kirsten just had to wing that shit. And we did see Cillian O'Sullivan's Devlin before in the series back in episode 1 when his boss Luca was having a meeting with the other heads of the 5 families. And as they get ready to rob the bank, Devlin mentions that he and the Skittle Squad are apparently robbing this bank in order to get a hold of the $1.8 million needed to pay the Fisk family back for the Fisks paying off Luca's debt to Victor's gang, which we saw in episode 3. But anyway, speaking of the Skittle Squad, one major costume design detail that I noticed was how Marvel Studios purposely had their masks match the colors of 5 of the Infinity Stones, with the exception of the color orange for the Soul Stone. Now, y'all know me and my countless videos on how Marvel Studios incorporates the Infinity Stone colors in all of their projects. I mean, they did it recently with the Order of the Colors of the Witch's Road in Agatha All Along, and they even included some Infinity Stone color theming on the main characters in the intro title sequence for their Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man series on Disney+. So y'all already know that I noticed this Infinity theme starting to play out pretty much immediately when Devlin's crew rolled in. This being said, throughout the entire episode, I was like, where the hell is orange in this story, man? Like, we've got 5 out of the 6 colors thematically included in this episode, so When are we gonna see some orange, huh? And I was getting pretty damn annoyed until we learned later on in the episode that the object that this Skittle Squad was trying to steal is a literal orange gemstone, completing this infinity color theme by saving the orange color for last, just like how Marvel Studios had the orange Soul Stone be the last stone that they revealed in the Infinity Saga. But speaking of this orange gemstone, while Matt and Yusuf were talking in the bank earlier, you could see Yusuf's glasses reflect the light off a nearby lamp, with this orange reflection almost looking like the orange diamond itself in Yusuf's eyes, a possible bit of cinematic foreshadowing towards Yusuf ending the episode with that diamond himself. But anyways, when the gang busts into the bank and force Yusuf with the rest of the hostages, the first thing that Yusuf does is ensure that one of his fellow co-workers are okay, instead of merely cowering in fear like the rest of them, with the cosmic crime-fighting Kamala Khan undoubtedly inheriting her father's compassionate nature. Matt then willingly and fearlessly walks into the hostage situation, pretending to be ignorant to what's happening. And when the red gang member pushes him to join the rest of the hostages, he teases Matt's blindness by calling him Stevie Wonder, the legendary blind singer, who was also black, mind you, so who's really the blind one here, huh? Matt then tunes into the racing heartbeats of the hostages around him, noticing the heartbeat of this woman in flower earrings named Celine to be suspiciously calm and normal, immediately tipping Matt off to her being part of Devlin's crew. The police then start to gather outside of the bank, causing this episode to start to really look like the 2006 film Inside Man, starring Denzel Washington as Detective Keith Frazier, especially when we see the return of the character Angie Kim as active deputy hostage negotiator, who quickly makes contact with Devlin, who refers to himself as Jesse James, referring to the infamous 19th century American outlaw. And in order to show good faith in their negotiations, Kim convinces Devlin to release 2 of his hostages, leading Devlin to choosing Matt Murdock and a random married woman. But not wanting to leave or see this woman separated from her husband, Matt suggests that the husband take his place, leading to Devlin to ask more about who the hell this brave blind lawyer even is. And when learning that Matt Murdock is an Irish lawyer who grew up in a Catholic orphanage, Devlin says the words "Jesus wept," a reference to the shortest verse in the Bible found in John 11:35. He then goes on to call Matt Murdock a character out of a Charles Dickens story, which is a bit of a fourth wall break in itself, considering that Matt Murdock is based on a fictional book character. After they let the married couple go, assistant bank manager Yusuf Khan is grabbed by the man in the blue mask to go open the vault, because this dumbass decided to lie and say that he actually knew how to do that. And as Matt waits with the other hostages, one of the men notes that the vault doesn't contain any money, but only safeguards a series of safety deposit boxes, with his most prized possession in that vault being a hockey puck signed by hockey legend Mark Messier, who played for the New York Rangers in the 90s. But during this moment though, notice how all the hostages but Celine are looking towards the ground in fear, as only she calmly looks forward, almost like being there as one of Devlin's plants was a waste of her time. A really great way to foreshadow her involvement with Devlin with body language. She also says to Matt and that hockey fan that she bets that the robbers are after diamonds, which she could confidently say considering that she is on their team. Then, after Matt tells the red robber that he has to use the little Daredevil's room, we hear the Daredevil theme play before the music is exchanged for the raw sounds of a blind badass beating a bandit on a banister. And I truly love when movies and TV shows decide to temporarily suspend their soundtracks completely so the audience can hear the sounds of pure action, because it really goes a long way in making the scene feel more suspenseful and every strike and blow feel way more impactful. However, one thing I wanted to point out about the red and blue robbers assigned to watch both Matt and Yusuf is how those colors align with both of those characters. I mean, the red robber went with Daredevil, who typically wears red, while Mr. Khan went with the blue robber, with the Khan family being tightly associated with the blue energy from the Noor dimension of the clandestines. But anyways, after Matt knocks off the blue robber and saves Yusuf's life, Matt begins to use his special ears to attempt to open the vault. And when Yusuf sees this, he tells Matt that he can't just open the vault like one of Kamala's piggy banks, yet another Miss Marvel reference in this episode. Like, this dad loves his daughter a crazy amount. Like, he mentions her every 2 seconds. Almost like she's an important Marvel character or something, I don't know. And Yusuf apparently gave Kamala this piggy bank in order to teach her the importance of saving. And when Matthew asked whether or not Kamala actually learned this lesson, Yusuf replies by saying, "I guess we just tried to impart what we know to the next generation, to protect them from what they can't see," which is something that Matthew Murdock himself could relate to hardcore, considering how his fighting skills as Daredevil are a result of lessons from his boxer father Jack Murdock and his surrogate father figure Stick. After opening the door, Yusuf asks Matt what kind of lawyer he is, to which Matthew says, a really good one, referring to what he told Peter Parker in No Way Home.
I'm a really good lawyer.
But anyways, as Devlin and Detective Kim continue their conversation upstairs, we finally get a firm date as to when this series takes place. Specifically, when Devlin reveals this St. Patrick's Day to be on a Wednesday, which is actually set to happen in the year 2027. Devlin then demands that Detective Kim tell him a joke, almost like he's the Batman villain, the Joker, to which Kim tells him a joke about a leprechaun having relations with who he thought was a leprechaun nun, but was actually a penguin. And this is right before we cut back to Matt and Yusuf talking about Matt's own parents, with Matt's Irish father also having had sex with a nun to create him. The two then finally find the correct safety deposit box that goes with the key that the blue guy had on his person, with that box containing a highly valuable, mysterious orange diamond on the inside. And while we don't know exactly what kind of rock this is at all, I think it would be absolutely wild if it was revealed to be a piece of pure crystallized adamantium that was mined from Celestial Island, given that Captain America Brave New World was released not too long before this series. But that is just a theory. Matt then heads upstairs and throws Devlin what Devlin thinks is the diamond before cops bust in and arrest all of Devlin's friends. But the devil does not let Devlin get away without punishment, choosing to put on the Red Robber's mask so he could beat Devlin's ass and break his leg the way that God always intended. Devlin, of course, hands what he thinks is the diamond to Celine, but it turns out it was one of Yusuf's candies the entire time. Devlin wanted a joke, but he got a prank instead, which is quite hilarious. The episode, of course, ends with Matt checking in on Yusuf at the bank before Yusuf invites Matt over to have dinner with him and the rest of his family to help him with his business, an offer that Matt happily agrees to, teasing Matt Murdock's future heroic involvement with Ms. Marvel somewhere down the line. And also, like I mentioned last week, do not forget to pick up one of our dope new Conviction shirts inspired by Daredevil Born Again today. It's got the swords and scales of Lady Justice on the front and Lady Justice's favorite blind badass on the back, covered in a sonar halo. Because this show is so damn popular, we are expecting these shirts to go fast, so pick up one of these shirts for you or one of your loved ones today. Episode 6 starts with another episode of the BB Urich Report, which sees BB interview a skater who shows us a video of the MCU Vigilante, the Swordsman, in action. For those of you who don't remember, Jack Duquesne was introduced in Hawkeye Season 1 back in 2021. He was initially introduced as a member of the extremely wealthy Duquesne family and the fiancé of Eleanor Bishop, Kate Bishop's mother. However, his relationship with Eleanor would end up not working out due to the tiny hiccup that was Eleanor Bishop framing him for the murder of his own uncle, Armand Duquesne, who she murdered herself like an absolute bitch. That's right, I said it. Eleanor Bishop is a bitch chap. I'm not afraid to say it. Apparently, Uncle Armand had done found out that Eleanor was working for Fisk and threatened to expose her connections to the Kingpin. So Big Willie had Eleanor send Uncle Armand to the big vacation yacht in the sky. But Swordsman would end up having his name cleared when Eleanor Bishop is arrested by the end of the season, with Jack using his dope-ass sword skills to fight against the tracksuit mafia in the process. But anyways, in the phone footage, we can see that Swordsman is sporting a dark hooded look as he fights off some bad guys with a sword, likely donning this attire after being inspired by Clint Barton's Ronin persona. And it's a persona that we know that Jack greatly admired due to his acquiring of Clint Barton's Ronin sword at a black market auction for the unbelievably low price of free $99 thanks to a special coupon that he found online called Stealing. It's a great coupon. It might get you some time in prison, but it's a great coupon. But though Clint Barton would ultimately reclaim the sword again by the end of Hawkeye Season 1, it seems like Jack wants to continue his legacy by becoming a hooded swordsman himself. The character of Swordsman is, of course, one found in the Marvel Comics, making his debut in 1965's Avengers number 19. He was actually the man who taught Hawkeye all of his sword and archery skills at a young age when they used to perform at carnivals together. But he was also a notorious thief and only trained a young Clint Barton so he could aid him in his life of crime. But when a young Clint tried to stop him from robbing the carnival blind, the swordsman would attempt to kill Clint by dropping him from a great height. But Clint would ultimately survive that fall and grow up to become the Avenger Hawkeye. Later on, Swordsman would sneak his way onto the Avengers team in order to take them down from within on behalf of the Mandarin. However, he would eventually see the error in his life of crime and join the Avengers for real. But unfortunately, soon after this, we are greeted to the gruesome sight of a man mutilated by that mental menace Muse, with his torture being shown to us at the end of episode 4. His eyes have apparently been gouged out, so they appear to be crying blood, mirroring the design of Muse's own mask. And of course, the blood has been drained from his body, so this psycho Bob Ross could have all the crimson necessary to paint his happy little accidents all over New York City. Which brings us to Muse's latest happy little accident in the form of this mural of a crowned Kingpin kissing the ass of a dollar-themed bull. And above Kingpin's crown is the word king with a question mark, as well as the words kiss ass with dollar signs for the S's. Like, Muse clearly has a big problem with corporations and greed in New York City politics, and has no love whatsoever for Wilson Fisk, as Muse seems to see right through the fake angel mask that Fisk puts up for society and knows that Fisk's hands are still elbow deep in criminal activity. Also, I love how Muse had Fisk's posture look a lot like the knee-locked posture of an American president that Fisk is clearly modeled after. It's a very nice touch. Sanitation worker John Santini attempts to power wash the mural before realizing that the paint is made out of human blood. We saw Jimmy Palumbo's John Santini last episode during the bank robbery. He was that guy that loved the New York Rangers. Also, I kind of find it hilarious how they gave the sanitation guy the last name Santini, but I'm sure they would have called him Mr. Clean if that name wasn't already taken. But anyways, we then switch to Matthew reciting the litany to St. Ives, with St. Ives being the patron saint of lawyers and abandoned children, which is fitting considering that Matt would be playing the role of Angela Del Toro's own guardian angel lawyer when he arrives just in time to stop Muse from slurping all that ketchup out of her body. Heather then enters the room and tells Matt that she's working on a new book on vigilantes. She's particularly interested in exploring whether or not wearing a mask makes the wearer more confident to be themselves, or if the mask gives them an excuse to be an animal, to which Matthew replies that he thinks it's a little bit of both. We see this response get validated by the end of the episode when Matt throws on his Daredevil mask and lets out a primal scream during his intense underground battle with Muse. We also see this mask theme play out in this episode with Wilson Fisk, who we see has to fasten on his fake nice guy face extra tightly in order to schmooze up to the local elites later on, with one of those elites being Tony Dalton's Jack Duquesne, the very swordsman that we saw at the start of the episode. Jack warns Fisk that neither him or any of his rich homies at the function really give a damn about his anti-vigilante agenda, and that Fisk needs to remember that he needs to keep kissing the ass of the elite or risk losing his current political power. A truth that frustrates Fisk to his core, especially since Muse literally just painted him kissing the ass of a symbolic bull made out of money with the blood of the innocent. This entire episode shows Fisk being straight up miserable with having to suppress his true intimidating nature, which is why when Fisk learns of Muse's latest selfie art display showing the Statue of Liberty modeled after Muse and holding handcuffs instead of a tablet of law, he immediately assembles his anti-vigilante task force to intimidate and or eliminate any masked person committing unlawful acts. And it's a squad filled with corrupt and overly aggressive cops, including Mr. Bobby Can't Box a Blind Boy Officer Powell with the Punisher tattoo, as well as this guy over here that Fisk identifies as Cole North, a vigilante-hating NYPD detective who made his first appearance in 2019's Daredevil #1. Comic Cole North would actually eventually end up shooting, beating up, and almost apprehending Daredevil were it not for the Punisher saving his tomato-colored ass. Comic book readers, of course, saw Wilson Fisk form an anti-vigilante task force during 2022's Devil's Reign comic book story arc, which this season of Daredevil mainly takes its inspiration from. So it was only a matter of time before we saw something like this happen in the show. Not only this, but to let out a little bit more steam, Wilson would also beat the ever-living hell out of Adam for laying his fancy schmancy artist hands on his wife, even giving Adam a handy Mauska tool in the form of an axe to help him fight someone much bigger than him, much like a young Wilson would use a hammer to kill his own much bigger father. Wilson would then proceed to smash Adam's face in like he used to do in the good old days, leaving Adam barely alive in a puddle of blood in his cell, with Wilson technically still keeping his promise to his wife to not kill Adam. Wilson loves himself a good loophole. But Big Willie is not the only guy that gets to beat up an artist underground this episode, as Daredevil would, of course, have his first face-off with the psycho killer Muse, while that was happening, after Muse would kidnap an Angela Del Toro who was attempting to solve the case of disappearing people near Track 61 all by herself. I mean, well, she did try to get Matt Murdock to help her solve the case that her Uncle Hector was trying to work on before he was shot, but there really isn't much a blind lawyer can do about all that. But Angela still gives Matt attitude anyway for how quickly he seems to dismiss her, seeing right into Matt's defeatist attitude about crime fighting. However, Matt would prove that he actually did care about Angela's visit by doing research on the abandoned Track 61 throughout the course of the episode. I mean, we hear him listening to information about it before Cherry gives Matt the news of a serial killer roaming the streets of New York, and right before Matt gets a call from Hector's wife about Angela going missing. Again, super wild how the Ayala family keeps going to a random lawyer to solve all their problems. But with their situation, I guess going to the police is kind of out of the question, because, the police kind of suck here. But anyways, the article about Track 61 that Matt is reading talks about how Track 61 and 63 at Grand Central Terminal were originally built to carry freight and serve as loading platforms for a steam powerhouse that used to be located on 49th Street. The tracks would eventually also be used as an underground network by a group of spies during World War II, until it was apparently repurposed as an underground sanctuary for New York's elite. However, during Loki's attack on New York in 2012, chunks of the terminal collapsed, leading to the mayor's cleanup team at the time starting an 8-month project to try to restore the foundation. Unfortunately, during that project, multiple construction workers would end up dying due to weak support in the inner walls. This all being said, I'm thinking that there's a chance here that Muse's murderously artistic motivations might be linked to Track 61's tragic history, considering all the kidnap victims have been kidnapped close to that track. Like, maybe Muse had someone close to him die trying to restore Track 61, only to discover that it was purely for the benefit of New York's politicians and elite. This could explain why Muse's selfie mural had reflections of New York City and New York City on fire on it, to represent how the rich sit in their skyscrapers and penthouses when times are good, but flee underground when times are bad and the people suffer. The 2 female bodies placed under the mural might represent the dead bodies of those construction workers who died trying to rebuild Track 61. But anyways, during Daredevil's fight with Muse, we can see that Muse clearly isn't the superpowered villain that he is in the comics, as Daredevil seems to have no problem detecting Muse's presence with his heightened senses. In the comics, Muse is an inhuman who has the ability to absorb all sensory information around him, making it super hard for a sightless Daredevil to hone in on his location. Comic Muse also has super pale skin, blacked out eyeballs, as well as slightly enhanced speed and strength, making him a bit of a super soldier of a man. However, here in the series, it seems like Muse has no other powers outside of his unique brand of creativity and impressive fighting skills. And also, Muse does not seem to be credited in this episode, but the character of Bastion is once again, making it likely that actor Hunter Doohan is playing the character. And one of my favorite moments during this fight is when Daredevil slowly rises into frame after knocking Muse to the ground. Because as he does, you can see a painting of a screaming person behind him, an excellent use of cinematography to represent Matt letting his inner animal out after putting his mask on. And like I said before, the primal scream that Matt lets out shortly after this was an absolutely perfect answer to Heather's question about whether or not masks allow the wearer to be both themselves and more primal at the same time. But the fight ends with Matt almost hanging Muse to death, but stopping himself from going too far like he did with Bullseye in order to restart Angela's heart. A moment that allows Matt to redeem himself after failing to save Foggy's failing heartbeat. It felt very Andrew Garfield catching MJ in No Way Home. However, doing so would allow this demonic Da Vinci to escape, a stark contrast to Fisk, who would also stop himself from murdering his artist that looks a lot like Jesus. Like, I love how these two fights are played side by side because on a symbolic level, it's an angel in devil's clothing fighting a pale demon, while a demon in angel's clothing fights a Jesus-looking dude. However, at the end of both of their fights, both Matt and Wilson seem to finally be at peace, after spending all of those episodes pretending to be people that they weren't. They finally get a chance to take their fake masks off and be reborn into their previous roles. Like Fisk ripping his suit earlier in the episode is evidence of Fisk's old self breaking through this facade, as it's clear evidence that he's been indulging in his dark pleasures behind closed doors. Like, this show is all about masks on a literal and figurative level, and I'm really enjoying the symbolism at work in the series, man. But anyways, that is it for this breakdown of episodes 5 and 6 of Daredevil Born Again. Let us know what you guys thought of these two episodes in the comment section down below. You guys can follow me at Mastertainment on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube, wherever I am on the internet. But most importantly, follow Heavy Spoilers here on YouTube by hitting that subscribe button and maybe even hitting that like button if you guys enjoyed the video. But like always, I have been MT, you guys have been amazing, and I'll catch you Daredevils later. Bye.